Yes, people, welcome back to another episode of the Beyond Hustle podcast. I'm your host, Fraser Graham, and I'm excited to be joined today by Charles Kyriakou. Charles, how are you, man?
I'm good, man. I'm buzzing to do this. Not only is it the first time in ages where I've been on someone else's podcast, but ever since you and I first spoke about you setting up this pod, I think I said to you, didn't I? Like, I need to be one of your first guests. So, yeah, I'm bloody buzzing for this, mate.
No, it's only right, and especially with the virtual episodes as well. It's like we recorded an in-person yesterday, but it was really you that helped us with like the virtual setup, the cameras, the lighting, the equipment. So, yeah, I owe you one. Nice. So good to have you here.
Yeah, awesome, man.
Brilliant, man. Well, there's loads of stuff we can talk over, but I think just starting off, we actually have similar beginnings in the industry. We both started out as apprentices, so be keen to hear where your story started.
Yeah, so obviously we spoke briefly about this yesterday, and some people that might listen to this might have already heard me tell a similar type of story, but I was one of those select few people that actually actively wanted to get into recruitment. A lot of people fall into the industry, but basically to go back, when I was failing school, got held back a year, and dad left home at 16, loads of stuff going on, like all the different types of mental health issues you have when you're going through your adolescence. I had to sign on to the job centre, and I missed my last couple of meetings with the job centre, and then when I came back in to collect the papers to get my payment, they basically said we can't pay you because you've missed the last two appointments, so you have to come back in on the 23rd of December, which is my birthday. So I had a bit of a tantrum in the job centre, ripped up my papers, threw it on the floor, crying, screaming, saying fuck you. And I literally asked the lady about a month before, what job can I do that helps people, that speaks with people and earns loads of money? And she kind of gave me this weird look, like, it sounds like recruitment, but I'm going to put you down for admin. I'm like the least admin orientated person, so I was like, what the hell? So anyway, after that happened, I got in touch with a company called John Lang Training, which is like an apprentice organisation. They offered me two opportunities, one that was £1,000 a month, one that was £600 a month. The £600 a month one I went to go and meet, their office was just, it was awful. Everyone looked like tramps, and I was like, I'm never going to work here. Got the other job, started as an apprentice, 5 months in social care, hated it. Didn't like the market, the people weren't great, it was in an industrial estate, and my view was the local dump, so not particularly
sets
fun.
The scene for you.
Exactly. So then when I left that company, I called the apprentice company back, and they said, why don't you just go back to the other one in New Barnet? And I was like, mate, it's £600 a month, and their office is an absolute dive. And they were like, oh, they're growing, they got loads of plans for the future. I was like, fine. So I went back in there, interviewed with the different team. So before, I think I interviewed with the compliance team for whatever reason. Met with Paul and Ian, who are like the nursing and mental health nursing like sales directors. We just got on, and they said come on in, you love business development, we'll give you a cold desk to build. Bear in mind, this is 2014. We had no training. We had a couple of VHS and DVD training things, but they just gave me a literal stack of paper like that of thousands of contacts for all the private hospitals, and said, just call them and get jobs.
Cool.
So literally every week I'd be sat there with my manager, my sales director, and the MD with my little notes, these are the people I've spoken to. They're like, yeah, cool. Have you actually got any jobs yet? And I'm like, no, is the reality. They've already got agencies. I don't know, they have a PSL. I don't know what that means. They're like, right, you need to come over this. You need to get the jobs. And I'm like, I'm trying. I just don't know how, man. I haven't had any training or anything like that. That's when they sat us in a boardroom with a DVD player. This is how to do BD. I was like, I mean, this is cool, all right. But long story short, we made it work. It's quite interesting because it was myself and a colleague called Charlie. So a Charles and a Charlie building the same desk is bloody. It's mad. It's just mad. But we made it work, and literally pretty much from scratch. We got on all the major private healthcare providers. We got on major NHS frameworks for all of North London, Hertfordshire, and some central London ones like St Bart's Hospital, for example. And then a few medical device companies where they would take on a contracting nurse for 6 months on outright. I'm talking £20 an hour margins and stuff. So that was really, really fun. But that was again, I'll talk forever. But that's kind of my intro into recruitment.
Mate, that's such a good story. It's proper baptism of fire kind of vibes that I get from that. Just go in, just ring through all of these and just see what happens. Charles and Charlie, it doesn't matter, just go and try your luck. How old were you at this point, by the way?
I was 20. So I was 19 when I interviewed for these businesses, and I was just so green, so raw. And prior to that, my last job was working in Next, and it's always quite funny because when I got my first job and I had to interview with the director, she sat me down and was like, "So tell me about your sales experience." And I was like, Yeah, so I've been working at Next for 9 months. Bear in mind, I've been working every Sunday, so it wasn't even a full-time job. It was the Sunday shift from like 11 till 3. And she was like, right, but that's retail, that's not sales. I was like, yeah, no, I totally understand why you would think that. However, we had an incentive in place that basically you had to stand by the door to greet customers, and we'd get these cards and have to get people to sign them. And then what we could do is we can cross-reference that online to see who signed it and use the code for the employee. And basically, I would do at least 100 customers per day. Obviously, I only worked 1 day a week, right?
Yeah.
And also, you couldn't fucking check online. It's complete bollocks. But she looked at me and was like, wow, that's really impressive. Like, how did you do it? Told her about how I built rapport. Didn't even know what rapport meant when I was 19 years old. I was just quite naturally good at speaking to people. And she kind of looked at me and was like, right, yeah, you've got like natural sales aptitude or talent. So yeah, I was only like 20 when I got into it. But like, I hadn't really done a sales job. Never worked in an office. Never been around like commercial, corporate or anything like that. Both my parents are like blue collar, like hairdresser, property maintenance. Other members did things that I'm probably not allowed to say on this podcast. You'll get the drift there.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I was like one of the first people to actually get like a legitimate sort of office job, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's weird because my story is fairly similar. Like, I also just worked 1 day a week in retail. Used to work in JD Sports until I got sacked, and that was literally all that there was on my CV. Yeah. I got sacked. Just by the way, I got sacked for having my arms folded, stood at the door. And I had a manager that had come from a different cultural background, and she come up to me and said, "Your arms are crossed. You've got bad attitude. Go home." And then from there, I lost my head. To be fair, I got sacked for losing my head a little bit, but it stemmed from that. Anyways, yeah. So I also done the same. Like, 1 day, I worked on a Friday, just done that 1 day a week, and then I come out of college. I was like, I don't have a clue what to do. I've just done. I did like a football. It was like a mix of a scholarship playing football for an academy, but also learning sport at the same time. I was like, I don't want to be a physio, I don't want to do any of these things. What do I get into? And a family friend had just said, you can make a few quid in recruitment. Got an interview, and I remember on one of my interviews, the top biller interviewed me, and I think it was like the final stage, just to basically give the all clear to the MD. And he said to me, he went, "What's 360 recruitment?" And I actually didn't know, even at final stage of the interview. And I went, and I put 2 and 2 together in my head. I thought, is that where you're responsible for the whole cycle? Obviously, like a full circle. Yeah. And he was like, yeah. So I just blagged my way in. So similar to you, maybe I wasn't as sharp as you in the way that you could turn like your retail experience into sales, but similar. We both got in as apprentices. I was £800 a month, I think, or so. Paid a little bit better. Bit of a flex.
Yeah. Oh, I'll never forget that, man. Like, I think after I moved jobs, because I only had like a week in between the 2 different apprentice roles, and I interviewed it for the whole week. Like, so the day I left / got fired, kind of a bit of both, because I got the email, meet me in the boardroom, i.e. I'm going to sack you. And because I was a really cocky, so a little bit like that now, but I was very, very cocky back then. I kind of came downstairs, and then she was just like, you know why you're here? And I went, yeah, it's not working. And she was like, yeah. Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say. And I was like, no, I know what you're going to say, but I just don't think it's working culturally. I just don't think I fit here. And they were like, yeah, 100%. I was like, I don't think I'm getting a lot out of you guys either. So let's just call it a day. And she was like, no, we're getting rid of you. And I went, no, you're not. I'm leaving. Like, it's fine. And she hates. She's like, I've never seen anyone as cocky as you. You're never going to make it in this industry. I was like, great, you're just adding fuel to the fire. And then the senior consultant came downstairs, threw my rucksack at me. All the pens came over the floor. So it was embarrassing to like get on your hands and knees and pick all your stuff up. And I was like, all right, well, thanks for the opportunity. See you later. They slammed the door. And as I was walking, because there's this long alleyway where I used to live, to go back from the industrial estate where the dump is up to like the town centre, I was walking up there, and like I had these 2 like voices in my head. Like, one voice was just break down and cry, yet another job you've been fired from, yet another job you've left in like less than 6 months, you're a fucking failure. And then the other voice was, you've just been having a shit ton of Rec to Recs message you, fucking message them and get straight on the train. So then I literally just messaged them all back, and then obviously like a candidate 5 months into the job, like fresh into recruitment, like, you know, I messaged all of them saying, oh, by the way, I'm meeting people in London. Can we meet up? Like, what opportunities have you got? So instead of going straight home, I literally got straight into the town centre, got on a train to Moorgate in like the city of London, and met with 3 recruiters, like 2 like Rec to Recs, and 1 was like a social care recruiter. But all of them basically said, like, that apprenticeship is completely pointless. There's no point you continuing it. Like, you might as well just get a job in the city. But for me, because I didn't have any like real education, I got held back a year in GCSEs. I left my A levels. I was like, I just want to have something where I can complete it from start to fucking finish. I don't want to have that in my subconscious of like I'm a quitter. I just want to complete it, even if it's bullshit. And that's why I took that £600 £600 a job, £600 a month job, because I was like, I just want to have something and show my mum, look, I'm capable, even if it is a shitty NVQ level 2 in sales that's absolutely pointless. I just want to sit there and look at myself in the mirror and go, I passed. I actually did it. I mean, I kind of did. I passed it early, but the tutor had to sit in the room with me whilst I was doing my maths exam.
Oh, really?
I literally done all the sales coursework, and then he was just like, I can't find your maths GCSE. And I was like, yeah, I don't have one. And he went, but you can't do, how have you managed to do an apprenticeship without a maths GCSE? And I was like, I've got like English. So, but you need maths. I was like, well, like, get me to do the maths test. So I did the maths test 4 weeks in a row, failed it every single time. Sales director's going mad because he's like, you're here to do sales and recruitment, not fucking maths and not fucking coursework. And I was like, you're not paying me. The government's paying me 600 quid a month. I'll do what I need to do, mate. Do you know what I mean? So in the end, the tutor, Martin, who, bless him, I still keep in touch with this to this day. And I've got pictures of him like over my shoulder, like signing the paperwork when I've completed the apprenticeship. He sat in the room and I was like, 12 divided by 6, fuck. And he went, 2. He would literally sit in the room and I'd be saying it out loud and he's like literally doing hand signs to give me the answers. It's so bad. Yeah. So bad. I shouldn't have actually said that. He might get in trouble. Actually, he won't. I think he's retired now. It'll be fine. Fine. It was a wild time, man.
When I did mine, I think it was a 2-year course, but I was also on the tools as well. So I was probably doing like an hour or two every day or every other day of my apprenticeship coursework, and then the rest of it was just me calling candidates, calling clients, doing 360 recruitment. And it was in 2021 when the market was great.
Really?
So yeah, I come in August 2021. So what we were doing initially was grad recruitment. So like second month, I had a client who were in the like supply chain and logistics industry, and because it was ramping up to Christmas, all of their clients had so many requirements, which meant they just needed delivery consultants like yesterday. So me as a rec to rec, they were just saying, send us anyone, we'll hire anyone. So I was getting graduates who were desperate to get into the industry, sending them to a client who were desperate to hire. And, you know, we could do like 8 or 9 deals in a month. They're only small fees, of course, like 4K, but it was so fast forward. Well, some of them were like 25 and 30K plus months. So what I'm saying is I was doing apprenticeship aside having the opportunity to do those billings as well. So I got about a year in
as well.
I was getting a small amount of commission, but yeah, I was getting commission. And yeah, I got about a year in and I've started to realise, wow, the market's on fire. I know what I'm doing and I've made placements, but I also do have this apprenticeship coursework that's holding me back for an hour or two a day. Yeah. And I said to my MD, I was like, look, I'm at a point now after a year in, not to be cocky, I am still an apprentice, I've got a lot to learn, but equally like there's such an opportunity here. I'm actually like in a decent level on the leaderboards. I want to get to number 1 and I'm not going to do that if I've got to do coursework. So after a year they just packed mine in. They were just like, you know what, we hear you 100%. They were actually super cool about it. They were just like, just go and just bill, like we'll cancel that, you're a recruiter now. But it's funny how we both started, because I guess as like apprentices you have to be, I don't know about you, but I had to be promoted to be a trainee. So I had to I had to hit a target just to be paid like, you know, another trainee that would have just come as like a 21-year-old, because I was 18 at the time, so they got away with it, I suppose. It was smart.
Yeah, they can. I mean, I the first couple of businesses I worked at never had like a progression scheme. Like nothing was transparent in that respect. So I actually had to pull my sales director aside and say, I've just got off the phone to my mum and we've got bailiffs knocking on the door to try and take our furniture because she can't pay the mortgage, and she's asking me to pay her £600 a month, and he's just kind of like with his arms crossed like, right, okay. And I went, I'm making you 3-4 grand a week and I'm not getting any commission because I'm an apprentice and I'm getting paid £600 a month. So with the mortgage and council tax I have nothing, and then with my phone, my gym and any other subscriptions and food and lunch and whatnot, I'm currently in my overdraft because I can't even afford to get the bus to work anymore. So he literally just pulled the other like directors aside and was just like, look, this is his like situation. This is how much money he's making us. Should we just promote him? And then they came back in and was just like, look, we'll speak to your tutor. We'll see if we can get you to do like fast track your apprenticeship. And the minute that you, oh my god, my camera's just, my lights just died. Oh well. As soon as you've finished your apprenticeship, then what we can do is we can give you a real salary, and then we'll start giving you commission. So obviously from my perspective, I was like, oh fuck. Sorry, people, I'm just moving my camera, my light. Yeah, so I passed my apprenticeship for like 3 or 4 months early, and that was obviously with Martin. He helped me because he knew my story and everything like that. And then they pulled me aside and was like, we got great news. We're going to put you on 16 grand a year. I was like, oh! Called my mum. I was like, Mum, I'm rich. I want 16 grand a year.
Mate, I had the same. I remember so vividly. I was on the tram home after work and I was thinking in my head, oh my God, I'm on 20 grand a year. I felt like the richest guy ever because at the time, all my other mates were also doing apprenticeships. So I probably was on the most money out of my mates at the time. And the funniest thing is that I had my old manager, Lewis. I went to message him to say, I can't believe Sullivan, he was called my old boss. I was like, I can't believe Sullivan's put me on 20 grand. But I accidentally pulled up the wrong WhatsApp chat and sent it to Sullivan, my old MD. And I went, I can't believe Sullivan's put me on 20 grand. I'm so happy. But I accidentally sent it to him. And he turned around to me, he was like, mate, you absolutely deserve it. I was like, shit, this wasn't meant to go to you. But I was like, it was probably a bit cringy. He was thinking, I've only put him on 20 grand. But to me, it was like, wow, I'm getting somewhere now. Yeah,
100%, especially when you're an apprentice. And like, again, like luckily you were earning some sort of commission. Obviously, don't get me wrong, like we had like in not even like thorough or like what's it called, like incentives that are like, if you do X we'll do Y. We had incentives that when we were doing really well and they saw that we were staying late, most of our team were all Spurs fans, like the sales director, the manager, my colleague Charlie, myself and my other colleague Joe, who reported into my manager on the nurse practitioner team. We were all Spurs fans. So one day they took us to go and see Spurs versus Nottingham Forest in 2014, I think this was, and I think Ryan Mason scored the winner, and they took us out to Red Dog Saloon, which is like this barbecue place, and we got like this I think it's called like the Devastator burger, which is like this big. It's like 4 patties, 8 slices. It's massive. But they just took us out, and like as a 20-year-old that hasn't really I've said this before on my podcast, like whenever we used to go to Harvester, my mum wouldn't allow me to buy steak because it was too expensive. Do you know what I mean? So it'd be like, get something cheap on the menu. Like we'd get nice food at home, like organic foods and stuff. But it was like the whole we've got it at home thing. We'd never be like, we'd go out, Mum, I'm really thirsty. We'll be home in an hour. I'm thirsty. Can I just get a bottle of water? It's like, it's not worth £1. You're like, fuck. There's always penny pinching and stuff like that. So like when your bosses take you out and like you've got a ticket to go to a football match and like you're going to a restaurant and they're buying you beers on the train, you're like, oh my God. But you're not even earning commission. But sometimes it's those little things when you're really young and like you're new to an industry and your bosses take you out like that. You're like, fucking hell, man, this is unreal.
Recruitment is great for that, in fairness. I know it gets a lot of stick, but like looking back at my time as an apprentice and a trainee, some of the stuff we done, I used to turn around thinking, wow, like I can't believe they're treating us like this.
Yeah.
It's great. I guess like obviously in your time as an apprentice and a trainee, it sounds like you were silver tongued, shall we say? Like you knew how to get your way around things. You probably had that natural sales ability. Like what advice would you give to an apprentice or a trainee or someone at that level starting out now that wants to maybe work a little bit smarter to progress?
It's a good question. I would always say, and I think I definitely had this mindset, and this really helped me. Don't get me wrong, I was quite cocky, and I think you have to have a bit of a balance between being cocky and using your ego to, like what you said, be number one on the leaderboard. Because if you don't have that in you, then I think, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with being a mediocre biller, whatever that looks like in your market. But I think if you really want to progress, then you need to know how to harness the fire inside of you without letting the fire take over your entire body and burn you down to the ground, because that's what happens when your ego gets too big. But the second thing is when managing that ego, it's really, and I know people say this a lot about having a growth mindset, but I don't think people really understand what a growth mindset actually is and how to actually utilize it. So when I was a trainee, I'd bug the living fuck out of my managers and my senior consultants by asking them, what could I have done better? How would you write that email better? Like everything that I did, even if a client signed on the biggest and bestest terms, but like, how could I have got them to sign on a higher terms, bigger retainer, more like, longer contract? Everything was always not just about just getting better, but like I was always seeking feedback from everyone and looking at how other people were doing things. And something that I got taught in my first week of recruitment was look at everyone in the office when you're dialing out. So great, my other lighter's died now. Fantastic. Fantastic. There's the ADHD. So when you're looking around at everybody else on the phone, you are listening in to seeing how Fraser does it, to see how Charlie does it or whatever, and then you're taking little key points from everybody and making it your own. So that's a really crucial thing that I say to people when I do training academies is when we do like role plays and stuff, there might be someone in the academy that is really good at building rapport, and there's a few little phrases that they use. Copy that and make it your own. Don't copy it and make it sound like Fraser or make it sound like Charles, because it doesn't sound as authentic as it possibly can. So it's a bit of a long-winded way of saying it, but always look for feedback. Always look at how you can improve. And I know it's really cringy to say this in cliche, but you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use it in that order, especially when you're a trainee. Don't be afraid to be the little one that's being kicked about a little bit, because that will make you so much more resilient. The amount of times where I'd be sent to the shops to go and get stuff, and then like the manager would sit there and be like, "Oh, I didn't ask for that bottle of water. I'll go back to the shop and go and get me another one." I'm like, "You fucking bastard!" Like little things like that makes you resilient, because you're going to have clients that are going to say, "Yeah, give me a call back at 3," and then they never pick up, or send me an email, they never reply. Like it makes you thick-skinned in that respect. So that's another thing. But hopefully that answered your answer. I feel like that's quite a long-winded one though.
No, absolutely. Like you say, be a sponge and find the right people. I think you said it there. It's a saying as old as time. You've got 2 ears and 1 mouth, but it's absolutely true, especially in our industry as well. I think active listening is obviously one of the biggest and most crucial skills that you can have. If you can learn that early on, you won't be far away from winning for sure. So obviously it sounds like you've built, or did build previously, a really successful nursing division and team around you, it sounds like. So where did you move from there?
Well, I say built a team, so it was really weird because one day I just came in and there was 2 desks either side of me. So there was no like progression scheme at that business. It was very much like, you're doing really well now, we're going to put an apprentice under you. And it's like, it wasn't like a mentorship scheme or a management scheme. But that job actually, that crashed down really bad, like really, really bad. And we had to go through like a legal dispute and all the rest of it, but I won't go into that. But I basically, long story short, Jeremy Hunt at the time put in a new legislation that stopped agencies. They basically capped agency spend for the NHS, and we basically transitioned because the volume in the NHS was so far greater than private. Don't get me wrong, I had a few nurses working at medical device companies on crazy margins, and some hospitals in the Channel Islands, and etc. But the NHS is where you could literally book 100 nurses a day. Like, it was mad. But then overnight, like, if you think I was paying my nurses £20 an hour days, 25 nights, and then we were charging the NHS 25 days, 30 nights, we're making like £5 an hour margins. They then chopped that down so that your charge rate was capped. This was years ago, but it's like 11 years ago now. I think it was like capped at like 20 days, 25 nights, which is what I was paying the nurses. And I had the scheme with every single one of my nurses, which generated loyalty and more referrals, which was, once you do an X amount of shifts for me, I will increase your pay 50 pence for every 6 months you work for me. Which for a nurse, like, it sounds like 50 pence is not a lot, but actually when you're doing 50 hours a week, that's a decent amount of money. And then if you refer someone to me, I'll give you 250 quid, right? So they were generating a comparison to what they were earning in the NHS. Like, I was getting them paid like £60,000 a year when they were earning £32,000 a year in the NHS, right? But when the market completely crashed, my sales director, in fairness to, I think he handled it very poorly, pulled me aside and said, look, if you're not enjoying it anymore, then just go and find something else. But the grass isn't always greener. I took that fucking literally, and I was like, brilliant. Okay, cool. Well, my time here's done. I want to go and do something a little bit more commercial. So I started looking for a job. They found out and were like, right, we're getting rid of you. And I was like, you can't do that. And they were like, we can. And then they got like an external HR consultant and an external lawyer and a whole panel of like 8 adults and me, who's like 21, 22 years old, just sat there like, what's going on? And I'm like, we got this evidence here that you've done this, that, and the other. I started twisting up my words with legal chat, and we're like, right, see ya. And withheld all my salary and my commission for like 2 months. I was like, great, what the fuck? And then this amazing recruiter called Heidi, I don't know what she does these days, but she was fucking unreal. I literally told her, I don't want to work in London. Don't get me a job in London. I won't go. Went for the interview in London, took the job in London, never left it.
Sign of a good recruiter.
A sign of a fantastic recruiter. But yeah, she helped me transition into perm recruitment, and that's when I joined a company called Projectus. And Tim was and is the managing director and founder. Was like a bit of a father figure to me. Just really, really understood that because I remember when I first started, he was like, "You're like a raw diamond, and I need to make sure, I need to look after you, polish you, because you're going to shine and you're going to be really fucking good at this job. But you just need to listen to us, and you'll be all right." So I joined that company, and I for the first 3 months, Fraser, I didn't know what I was doing. Genuinely, I was doing a market and working with a manager, and I had no idea what I was doing. And to this day, every single person that joins after their first couple of months, they had to do a presentation on their market. To this day, my presentation was the worst presentation in company's history. It was just littered in memes and just nonsense, didn't make a bit of sense. And at the very end, it was a picture of Hulk Hogan flexing like that, saying, "I'm here to chew gum and kick ass, and I'm all out of gum. Any questions?"
Oh, God.
And everyone in the office goes, one person goes, No? Okay, we're not clapping. Cool, any questions? So what exactly are you going to be doing? I was like, yeah, literally, I just didn't have a fucking clue. But then I moved markets within that company after about 3 months, and then literally about a month after moving markets, I'd done 3 new business deals, 1 new business, best newcomer of the year 2016, best business developer of the year 2017, biggest deal, most new business, all in 2017. Same thing in 2018, and then basically everyone that I hired in 2019, because I became an actual legit manager because we actually had a progression plan. They became like top business developer of the year. Like took everyone that worked for me to President's Club, to like Marbella and Ibiza and all those different types of places. So when I joined Projectus, mate, that was like I would say the making of me. Like the years before that were very much the building grit and resilience and like the fast-paced nature, bashing the phones, doing contracts. But when I started to work at Projectus, when you actually had a bit of an infrastructure behind me, that's when I started to really like get to grips with recruitment and start earning some serious cash and actually progressing my career properly.
Yeah. What I find so crazy about that is you started at Projectus, first market didn't work out, but then as soon as you got into that second market, it just clicked. Yep. What happened there? Like, why did it work out all of a sudden?
The first manager I had at Projectus, bless her, I don't think she was a manager. She was the top bill of the year before that. And like a lot of businesses, they make this mistake where they promote someone to be a manager when they have no leadership qualities. So I'll give you a good example of this. Every single time I'd ask her a question, she would look at me with this stern look and say, figure it out. And I'm like, right, okay, I'm trying to figure it out by asking you because you're my manager. And then she would say, have you Googled it? And I'm like, yeah. And she was like, and what did you find? I was like, I haven't. That's why I'm asking you. And she was like, look on the database. I'm like, oh my God, it would be so much easier if you could just fucking ask me because now I'm wasting time. That was kind of like the relationship we had. We didn't click, like personality-wise. She was a very fiery, aggressive character, which made her brilliant at business development. But when it came to like the soft side of leadership, awful. So whenever I was asking questions about the market and stuff, I would just be belittled in front of people. Like, how do you not know this? Why haven't you done your research? And I'm looking and everyone's kind of like, oh shit, like that. So when someone else left in the business and one of the other guys was just like, look, so-and-so's left. Do you want to come work with me? I was like, oh my God, please. And I just basically broke it down with him. I was like, look, I might be annoying. I might be hyper. I might be a bit of a distraction, but I mean well and I really want to learn. So if you don't mind, I'm going to ask you a shitload of questions, but it's just because I want to be the best version of myself. And if you look after me, I'll make you a fucking lot of money. And he just smiled at me and was like, fine, sound. And he was a very detail-orientated, cool, calm, collected guy, which complimented me because obviously, as you can tell, I'm not... I can be cool, calm and collected, but naturally, I'm a very high energy, sometimes ever so slightly nervous and frantic, like that. But that was great for speaking to clients, that high-paced business development aspect. I just needed someone that goes, right, Charles, you're going there. Let's just make you go there. And I'll go, okay, like that, and go a million miles an hour, super competitive, all the rest of it. And also, mate, the market that I was doing before, I didn't click with it. The people I was working with, I didn't find interesting. They were research analysts, clinical research organisers. I just didn't really click with it. When I started to recruit surgical sales reps that were going into the operating theatre and guiding an orthopaedic surgeon or a minimally invasive surgical procedure with like a laser pen and then upselling surgical devices in an operating room, I was like, this is fucking fascinating. I love this shit. And then when I found out about the urology market, so I get to talk about surgical devices and I get to have fun by saying, so there's an incision on the willy. I was like, this is great. This is awesome. Oh, this device here helps with... And then they've got a product which is medical grade lube and I can sell that to candidates. And maggot therapy. I was like, this is brilliant because now I can be a bit of a class clown and I'm sat there, we're walking around the office making sales calls going, so we've got a really amazing opportunity, Fraser, 60k a year. It is tea bags full of maggots that gets rid of dead tissue on the arm. What do you think? What are you thinking? And candidate's like, yeah, it sounds great. Everyone in the office is like, what the fuck is going on? And I'm like watching videos with a candidate on Zoom going, as you can see, the rigid endoscope goes right through the urethra. And everyone in the office is like, Charles, you can't be saying that. I'm like, it's medical terminology. I can. And they're like, oh, fucking hell. Like, so I could just have a bit of a laugh with it. And the candidates loved it. And it's technically part of my job. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, this is great. This is like, I loved it. So to this day, like if I was to go back into recruitment and do it, I'd love to go back into that market because I was so engrossed, so passionate, and just being able to have like serious conversation and a bit of banter and a bit of fun about it as well. Oh, it's a fucking no-brainer. I think if you're really passionate about your market and you want to get engrossed in it, like I think you'll do a lot better in comparison to doing something you just don't find interesting at all.
Yeah, for sure. So in summary, you found the right market that suited you as a person. Like you say, it can be a bit of a class clown, have a bit of a laugh, but naturally that allows you to show your flair off a little bit more.
Yeah,
100%. Yeah. I think, look, obviously you're a coach, right? The owner of Infinite Learning, if we haven't sort of introed this already. You spoke there about how the first manager you had was quite stern, and obviously her approach didn't quite work for you. What would you advise to, new managers or people that are trying to find the right balance with their trainees? I think obviously her approach was just go out and learn it yourself, be quite sovereign. Whereas I'd be interested in hearing your perspective on how you found that balance.
Yeah, I think, look, there's definitely a balance, because you don't want someone to be hyper reliant on you. And when I said that I used to ask my manager tons of questions, there were times where he would just look at me and just give me this look as if to say, what are you doing? Like, that could have been Googled. You don't have to distract people in the office, figure it out. So there was an element where I would go, right, okay, I can figure this out myself. And it got to a point where everyone in the office, because I was like the lead distractor of everyone, right? And I would get massively distracted by other people. They would always say, like, if you can figure it out from the system, look on the CRM. If it's not in the CRM, Google it. If you can't Google it, ask someone. But like asking someone is like the last thing that you need to do, right? So that's kind of the one thing that I did. Now, if you're a new manager, I say this to clients all the time, right? First and foremost, promoting someone to a manager because they've got really good billings is like promoting a defender who's got the most amount of tackles to a striker. There's no fucking like correlation there, right? Yes, you can maybe make them mentor someone for a little bit, but just because they're a top biller doesn't mean they have natural leadership skills, man management skills, or whatever you want to call it, right? But if you are someone that is a natural leader or whatever it is, and you want to step into that leadership role, I always say one of the first things to do is sit down with your new hire or whoever it is in your team and really, really, really understand, not just understand, like really understand their intrinsic motivators. Yeah. So if someone sits there and says, "Oh yeah, Fraser, money's really important to me." Why? Because I want to get a car. Why? Because my car broke down. Okay, cool. Why else do you want to get a new car? I want my mates to think I'm cool. Or I want to be able to take a girl out for a drive and she thinks I'm cool. Okay, why else? Make my mum proud. I don't know, like, etc. So you get really, really deep into what's actually motivating them. Because if you understand the intrinsic motivators, if someone's scrolling TikTok or playing poker on their phone in the office, you can just point at their goal on the wall where they have a real true understanding of their intrinsic motivator, and that's going to snap them out of it first and foremost. The second thing is actually really understanding their learning styles, their communication style, and their personality style. So you can do that through so many different things like 13 personalities or various different personality tests, a disc profile, and also like literally just go on Google, search "surrounded by idiots, the 4 colours, and then figure out which one you are. Do that with the person in your team, figure out which one they are. The first person I ever hired, before I carry on, are you familiar with like the 4 colours, like the red,
I'm familiar with the book, but I'm familiar with the book, but I haven't read it and I don't know the colours.
Okay. So I'll briefly explain it to you, and your listeners will probably go, like, some people might be going, what the fuck is this guy talking about? So basically, I go through this in all my training, right? So a yellow personality is someone that is a dynamic, chatty, friendly, positive, outgoing person. If they work on a project, a yellow person wants to do it with everyone. A green personality is like your HR manager sometimes, like a healthcare provider or a teacher. They're very nurturing, very caring, very encouraging. And if you work on a project with a green person, they want everyone to feel happy and safe. So yes, they want to be with people, but they want to make sure everyone else is okay. They're like the mediators. A blue personality is like your engineer, marketing person. They're extremely detail orientated, sometimes borderline perfectionist, where if you're working on a project with them, they're very, very analytical, and something they would normally say is, I want to make sure the project is done correctly. So I don't care if it's done, I don't care who else is doing it or how they feel, it just needs to be done properly. And then finally, the red personality is your business owner, managing director, sales manager, sales leader, just a very action-orientated, go, go, go type of individual that if you work on a project with them, they don't care who's doing it, who's happy or not, how they do it, get it done. They just want to get it done. The first hire I had was a bright blue, and I was a bright yellow. So you got green and yellow on the left side, and red and blue on the other side. Or actually, red and yellow, and green and blue. So green and red clash like fuck. So the ops director or the head of people and the founder will clash because they're like, oh, Fraser's not feeling good. Don't care, he's not his target, right? The blue personality who's in marketing that goes, we can't send out this marketing campaign yet because it's not right. The yellow personality and the red personality were like, oh, we're having fun with it. The video looks fine. Just put it out. And then they'll clash. So my first hire, Oscar, we didn't know this at the time, was a bright blue. His intrinsic motivator was legacy, and he's an artistic and creative person. So everything he did, he wanted people to look at him and go, he's done a good job by me. I just wanted to do it because I wanted to have fun and get it done. So I had a little bit of red in me, and everyone's a mixture of all of them. But I was primarily a yellow personality because I was very dynamic and wanted to be around people, right? As soon as I understood that, Fraser, I didn't realise that every time I come in on a Monday, I went, so mate, how was your weekend? He fucking hated it. He hated it. That type of small talk for him is cancerous. So rather than ask him that question of how was your weekend, I would say, so what's been the most interesting thing you've done over the weekend then? He went, he liked thought-provoking questions. Whereas someone else, you'd ask him, how's your weekend? Yeah, it's good, you? Yeah, it's all right. So as soon as I understood his communication style and his personality, I could then manage him effectively. So when I was a young apprentice, I didn't mind the cosh. I didn't mind someone, Charles, what the fuck do you think you're doing? But some people I've managed, when you sit there and be like, that's not fucking good enough, mate, they get their back up and go, don't fucking talk to me like that, like that. So you have to be a little bit more nurturing with them, etc. So again, pretty long-winded answer, mate, but like I said, to recap for people, understand their personality style, communication style, learning style. There was something else that I mentioned prior to that as well. Intrinsic motivators. Really understand, like, use the 5 whys. Ask what else, why is that, why else. Really, really dig into their intrinsic motivators, and that way you'll have a much better time managing people.
Damn, I have to read that book for sure. It's been on my list for a while, but I've kind of got to a point now. We were talking about this on the podcast we did with Rich yesterday, which will probably release one before this. There's a lot of self-help books and self-development books, which is like, they could be so much more condensed. They take maybe 200, 400 pages even sometimes to explain one simple point. I mean, you've probably just told me about the whole book just there in like a few minutes. But for managers, that sounds spot on. And it's interesting, when I was listening through it, I do agree with you. We are definitely a blend of a few of the colours, but I was thinking about a marketing campaign we've done recently, and it was myself and Cal doing it, and I'm definitely more red, whereas he's blue. Everything has to be perfect. It'll be at a point where I'm like, go, it looks great, let's get it out. And he'll be like, no, it has to be to the T. So yeah, it's so interesting. I'm definitely going to read that to just see what everyone else is like.
A little tip for people: when you are on the phone to someone and you start off with your opening question, like, how are you? How's your weekend? How's the search been going? Whatever. You can almost immediately see what colour they're presenting as, because again, sometimes I will be more red, sometimes I'll be more blue. Like, you're a blend, right? But typically you're largely one colour, or like 75% of one colour most of the time, or dependent on specific scenarios you're in. But depending on when you ask that question, think about the answer that you get from someone. If someone replies to you and goes, like, if you were a client of mine, I said, how was your weekend? And you went, good, thank you, mate. You? Immediately in my mind, I think, right, you're action orientated, you're direct and to the point, so I'm going to be direct and to the point. Because if I then come back and go, oh, do you know what, Fraser? Yeah, it was awesome. Went to a sparring class, had really a lot of fun, then I went to take the dog for a walk. You'd be like, I do not give a fuck. Just get to the fucking point. Someone comes back to you and reciprocates what I've just said there. You might think they're a bit yellow, so you can maybe raise the fluff a little bit. Someone comes back and you go, like, how was your weekend? And they maybe give you like I give this example because I had a candidate once. I went to a boat show and they've got this new boat, and I actually saw the new Lamborghini boat. I'm like, really? What makes that so different? Then they go into the detail. You go, right. So when I go onto my like proposal and terms of negotiation, I need to go through every single bit of detail with them, because they're quite analytical and they want facts and logic. They don't want fluff and emotion. And if it's green, like your HR manager, how are you feeling? How is everyone getting on? The hiring manager was a little bit stressed. How is he doing? Etc., etc. So it's just very much a caring and nurturing type of approach to the conversation. So, mate, literally what I've just said there, like, you can go on ChatGPT and get a bit of a synopsis from the book, or go on YouTube and get a 10-minute synopsis. But like you said, a lot of the self-help books, I've got fucking dozens to my side over there. You end up reading them and you get what you need after like 100 pages. And you're like, there's still another 300 pages. What more? They're just going to tell me the exact same point, but from 3 other people's perspective. Like, do I need that? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. It's funny because we spoke about this yesterday. Cal, because of his ADHD, would struggle to read a massive book, which is totally fair. But he just says he can understand the book sometimes by just reading the blurb. or by just reading an introduction. And at first I was like, no, surely you can't. But when I think about it, you probably could, because like you say, it just gives an initial example in these like 400-page books. And then all it does after that is give another example, then another example. And it's all just the same point that it makes in the first 10 pages. But 100%. Yeah, it's interesting. And I think one thing that really irritates me is when you get on the phone with a client, let's say, and they're super blunt and somewhat rude, even though I know they're probably not trying to be, but I'd be interested to know what colour this person is. So say if I answer the phone and say, hey Charles, how are you? And you just go, good. No, how I'm okay, thanks, how are you? Just good. What colour would that person be? Is that a yellow?
Red as fuck. Yeah,
oh, really?
Red as fuck. Yeah, red as fuck. That, again, like I did a call coaching session a few weeks back and we listened back to the call and two things happened. Firstly, they weren't aware that person's communication style was bold, to the point, direct, action orientated. Secondly, they didn't realise that the questions they were asking, with respect, were fucking shit. And when I say fucking shit, I mean they were asking terrible closed questions like, is this role still open? They went, yes. Okay, cool. Have you had agencies on this? Yes. Charles, like, can you see this person's so fucking rude? I'm like, no, you've asked terrible questions. Well, let's go on to the next question. Okay, so if I had someone like this, is that someone of interest? Yeah. Okay, cool. Do they need this? Yeah. Great. Okay, I think I need... so can we book another call? I'm really busy. Okay, do you mind if I call you next week? Sure. All right, well, Fraser, thanks very much for your time. I'll give you a call next week. All right, bye. Yeah, see, Charles, they were really rude. Well, they're a red personality. You were giving loads of... and all that fucking bullshit, and you were asking terrible questions. So then we role-played it together, and I just basically wrote on a board who, what, when, why, where, how, etc. All the open questions, and then some soft commands, tell me, explain to me, walk me through, etc. And I said, all those points that you asked about, just do it with me right now, and I'm going to be, if not more blunt, even though you can't get as blunt as that guy, but just ask them in open questions. And the responses I gave were a little bit more, and then I paused, and I was like, right, and I went over to the board, and I wrote down mirror, and I said, when I give you a short answer to an open question, like, so tell me about the experience you've had with an agency. And I went, well, it's been pretty shit. Pretty shit? Well, yeah, the agency only sent me 5 candidates. I only interviewed 1. They weren't great. Only 1? Yeah, well, he wasn't really great, mate. Why wasn't he so great? Well, because of X, Y, and Z. Da, 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 da. And all of a sudden, and we paused like multiple times during the role play, he was like, okay, I think I understand. And I was like, right, let's bang on to another call right now. Let's call someone. And every single time you get stuck, just think about person and team as one topic, company as a second topic, and recruitment as a third topic, and then just spiral out into all the open questions. And then when you get something, mirror 1 to 3 keywords as a question. So like it goes like that, like question, and then just see what happens. Mate, honestly, this is why I love what I do, because the look on the person's face, because we had the phone on loudspeaker in a boardroom, and we would press mute on the phone as soon as he would like mirror or ask a really good question, and the client would go silent for 2 seconds, and we both sat there like, oh, they're going to say something. It's a fucking good question, Jack. Let me tell you a little bit about this other agency then, and then just goes in, and we're like, oh my God, it fucking works. So yeah, so basically to answer your question, mate, like if you've got, and a lot of like founder level, director level, like senior level are going to be like to the point. So if you're offering loads of fluff, which is typically how I used to operate as a recruiter before I understood how to be a chameleon and shift my approach, you're going to get people that are going to go, oh my God, get to the fucking point. I'm so busy. Just shut the fuck up. Just get to the fucking point. So just mirror and match the energy, the tone of that person, and use open questions. And largely, most people will be a lot better off in recruitment if you just did those 2 things.
Interesting. It's funny because I guess as recruiters, the worst thing that you think can happen is someone is that red and that blunt as soon as they open up the phone. Yeah. If you've never spoke to this guy or lady before and the first thing she does is be blunt, that's just set the tone and you think, shit, I'm in deep waters now. But I guess in that situation, your first thing is always open questions, hold a mirror up, you'll be fine.
Yeah. And also, I helped shift someone's perspective on that recently because they were like, I find them really challenging to work with. And I said, okay, I get that. I think the reason why you find them challenging to work with is because you haven't adapted to that personality style yet. And they were like, what do you mean by that? And I was like, you only are able to work with people like yourself because you haven't developed this muscle of being a recruitment chameleon yet. What you'll start to realize is that those red personalities can be, not always, can be the best types of clients to work with. Why? Because they get shit done. They get shit done. I have clients, Fraser, that I speak to on the phone, and an hour later, I'm like, so, should we book the slot's in, or they're like, oh, sorry, mate, yeah, I'll tell you what, why don't we speak again next week? Let me go and speak to finance, see if we can get that sorted. I'm like, I've just spent a whole hour speaking about your kids playing football and talking about this, that, and the other, and we haven't got to that. And I'm bad for it because I love talking to people and learning about like their outside of life, work types of things and whatnot. But when I speak to these red personalities, yeah, there's a little bit of that chat. And obviously the people I work with are very nice and they want to know about me and my family and vice versa. But those calls aren't an hour long talking about fishing and MMA. It's like 5 minutes of that, 5 minutes of, right, Charles, I've got shit to do. When are we booking you in? When do you need to send the invoice? When does that need to be paid for? Have you got your terms of business, etc.? So it's the red personalities, as blunt as and as rude we think they are, they just want to get shit done. And people that want to get shit done are typically the best people to work with.
Absolutely. Whilst we're on the topic of this, I was keen to explore, I guess, another avenue of like self-development and ways that you can level up by just learning in your own time. And wanted to talk to you about NLP qualifications. I've seen that more and more recruiters are coming out saying they're doing NLP qualifications. It's helping them in their work day to day. I know you've done one yourself, and it's not something that I've spoke with anyone on a podcast about before, and I've not heard anyone speak about it on a podcast. So it'd be great to get your insights on what it entails and why people should do them.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, first and foremost, it's not cheap, right? We're talking like several thousands of pounds to go through courses. And the coach that I worked with was a guy that studied under one of the three founders of neurolinguistic programming, a guy called Ricky Verdi from Raising Your Game. He's really, really good. But NLP, to make it really simple for people, is the study of human excellence, which is why I found it so fascinating. It's essentially like the way it was founded was that they found professionals in like hypnotherapy, family psychology, family therapy, etc. They modeled their beliefs, behaviors and habits and how they did their practice, and then molded all those different aspects into one, and was like, right, we understand now how to model human excellence so that if you want to be a world-class recruiter, we can teach you ways of how to model the top performer and be a version of yourself, but using their beliefs, their behaviors and their habits. So one of the exercises that we did on the master prac, so you do like NLP practitioner, master prac, and then train the trainer. So that's when you want to train people in NLP. But the master prac was really interesting. Bit cringy, don't get me wrong, but we had to come in and present in the morning like a speech as someone else. And what was really fascinating, there was this lady called Dina. I think she ran a care home or something. Filipino lady, like, you know, a little bit older than me, quite introverted. And she came in and she was going to model this TED talker who was like really, really like well-spoken and all the rest of it. And she literally just stood there and then just changed her state on the spot, which I'll talk about in a second. This is why I really love it. And was able to articulate the way that this lady did on the TED talk, essentially copied her mannerisms, the way she walked, the way she spoke, everything, and delivered the speech exactly like her. Now, some people might listen to that and go, so basically just copying someone that doesn't really, what's the fucking use of that? Like, so if I'm a recruiter listening to that, are you saying that I'm just going to look at the way my top biller speaks and then just do that? Yeah, on the face of it, it looks like that, sure. But if you think about, oh, I want to be like the top biller, what does that person believe about themselves to be true? Like, what do they say to themselves when they're about to pick up the phone? Because I know when I was a trainee picking up the phone, I was like, I hope they don't answer because I'm not confident. I don't know how to deal with objections, etc. But the top billers are like, I have value. They're crazy not to speak to me. So that's the first thing, is like the belief that they have. I want to model that and take that belief and make that belief my own. Okay. The second thing is the behavior. What does a top biller do every single day? Well, 9 times out of 10, they're quite rigorous with a plan of action. They're quite action orientated in terms of, I'm going to set myself 10 conversations by the end of the day as a bare minimum, and they will act on that and they will do that. And then the third thing is, what habits do they have? A lot of top billers will have a variety of different habits, but largely it's very phone based, meeting orientated, etc. So you can model those key things, how they believe, how they think, how they act, what they do subconsciously, i.e. their habits, and then you can make that your own, add a bit of flair, i.e. your own personality, and that's how you can model, quote, human excellence. But a few other things that I find, besides obviously the coaching element, which is why I first got into it, but the thing I find most fascinating is state change and state management. So before I tell you about that, because some people might be listening to this going, what the hell is this guy even on about? Are you kind of aware of like what state management is and state change is at all?
I've only heard of it in the context of breathwork. I don't know if this has got anything to do with that.
So breathwork is absolutely a part of that. So if we think, right, if you were to be pulled into a meeting with your boss and you knew you've blanked for 3 months, right? Your state is probably going to be anxious. It's probably going to be fearful. You might have some trembles, whatever. It might not be, right? But I know for me, when I blanked for a couple of months, I was fucking shitting myself, right? And I used to suffer really bad with anxiety. And I always used to have this limiting belief that I've always had panic attacks. I've always been an anxious person. And until my coach pulled me up on that and went, you haven't. And I went, I have, Ricky. I've always had anxiety. I went, what, even when you were 1? And I was like, well, no. And he went, so you haven't always had it? And immediately, as soon as he said that initial reframe was like, oh, fuck, okay, so I haven't had it all my whole life. Where did it actually come from? But anyway, I digress. So the first thing of changing your state is challenging the belief in your mind. So again, like I said, I used to have a lot of anxiety. Recently, I done an academy in Northampton. I had a bit of anxiety about driving 60 miles to work in the morning. I had a few issues on the road before, so I was like really nervous. So the first thing is challenging that belief, right? And thinking, what belief is serving me well? What belief is not serving me well? And I eliminate the one that isn't, and I embody the one that is. So the one that was like serving me well is, well, actually, I'm going to go and do an amazing academy, and I'm going to add so much value, and these trainees are going to love me. So let's focus on that belief for now, and I'm going to be fine. The second thing is my physiology. So if I'm standing up right now, when I do podcasts and meetings, I stand up because that puts me in the best possible state. A lot of trainee consultants, you and I probably did this as well, hunched over their desk, whispering on the phone because they don't want to stand up and look like an idiot on the phone, right? That in itself, just your physiology, your posture, creates the state that you want, right? So if you're hunched over, your diaphragm is closed and it's in a bit of a defeatist posture, right? So you're not going to get much out of that. So you might have heard of like power poses and stuff. Again, they sound a little bit cringe. But what I used to do is I used to just put my shoulders back, hands on my hips like that with my headset on, ready to call, stand really, really tall, right? I've changed my belief to this person's going to want to speak to me. And the third part of that, like you said, is breath work, right? So you don't have to do anything elaborate. It can simply be a short, sharp inhale, and then a big, long like that. Right, I'm fucking ready. My belief is on point. My body is on point. My breath is on point. I have now changed my state. So whenever I do podcasts, and sometimes I have people on that I've never met, or I have a client meeting with a big shot CEO, and like I have a limiting belief like, oh no, they're a CEO. I change that belief and go, I've spoken to tons of CEOs. I've done this for a long time. I'm going to be fine. I change my posture because I'm sat in my fucking office chair going, oh, like that. I change my body. I change my breath because oftentimes when you're anxious, you're breathing through your mouth and you've got panic receptors in your throat, which causes further anxiety. So you change it to nasal breathing. If you can breathe through your nose. I can only recently just breathe through my nose, but that's another story. Once you do those 3 things, you can change the state. And the trippiest thing, man, the really, really the trippiest thing is, and I know it's fucking cliche, but you can create the fucking state that you want to be in on a consistent basis. And the more you do that, it becomes habitual, which is done subconsciously. So you can become a fucking weapon. You can come into the office, act like you're a fucking top biller when you're a trainee consultant, pick up the phone and sound a lot more senior than what you are because you've just done those 3 things. But you have to do it consistently. Just like with the boxing and stuff, the first time you throw a punch is probably shit. But after the 1000th time you've done it, it's going to be a lot fucking better. So if you do that and do it consistently, anxiety levels will diminish, confidence levels will rise, and you'll just be so much fucking better off in this job.
You said it cost you a few quid to do it, and clearly it sounds like a massive upside for you.
Yeah.
How long does the course actually take to complete? I know there's a few different ones, right? You have like masters after your foundation.
The one that I did, I think was, so we did it on a Saturday and a Sunday, 9 until 5, and I think there was like 6 modules or 8 modules. So to put it this way, I was working in recruitment doing 50, 60-hour weeks, and then every fortnight I was spending my whole weekend in central London again to do an NLP course, and then sometimes I would go into London to do another coaching course as well. So I was essentially like working 7 days a week, doing like learning on the weekends and stuff like that. But I believe it's like 6 to 8 modules, Saturday, Sundays, every fortnight, and largely you do it in a big cohort of people. Quite weird when I did my master prac. I think it was my master prac at least. There was a guy with one of my old candidates, who's a sales guy, who was promoted to manager, was in there. And I looked at him, I was like, this guy looks familiar. And he went, you're Charles Kyriakou, aren't you? And I was like, yeah. And he went, I'm Jonathan Wood. I was like, from Colour Plus. I was like, no fucking shot. This is madness. And we got a chance to like coach each other and practice with each other and stuff like that. But yeah, I can't remember how much it cost, mate, but it was in the a few £1,000s. But the first one that I did was the NLP practitioner course, which was like intro to NLP, intro to a coaching framework, challenging beliefs, behaviors, creating good habits, etc. And then the master prac was like a lot more. Oh, also we went through language patterns that I find fucking fascinating, by the way. I've just created a document. I don't know if I've sent it to you, but I will after this, where basically they studied a guy called Milton Erickson, who was one of the world's most famous family or hypnotherapists, basically. And his thing was all about speaking to the person's subconscious, because the subconscious is responsible for 80% of the brain's activity. So if you can bypass someone's logical thinking to basically, his whole thing is, if I give you the frame, right, I'll give you a pencil or a paintbrush and you'll paint the picture using the words that I'm asking you. So rather than say like, Fraser, let's book a call tomorrow, it's most clients I work with book a call, and then I would follow up with, how does Tuesday at 9 or 10 look for you? So it's basically in your subconscious, it's like, I suppose we're going to book a call as the next step. And also there's no choice because you've only given me Tuesday at 9 or 10. So there's, again, I'll send you the doc, and for people that want to learn more, I've done loads of content about this, but there's so many things about the NLP aspect that I find so fascinating, and it really, really helped me with my confidence levels of like being able to articulate and communicate properly, and B, just being smarter about how I communicate, because before I was a bit of a loudmouth, brash, like cocky, like early 20s, like winging it with a bit of a natural sales aptitude. But then when I started to be smart with the language I use to then positively manipulate candidates and clients to fall in line with what I wanted to do, with integrity, of course, and with compassion, and not just making people do things they didn't want to do, because that's wrong. But yeah, overall, mate, it genuinely changed my life. Absolutely changed my life.
Sounds it. Can you do these things online as well, or are they always in person?
So, but I don't know how much of it would be in person, because online, sorry, because a lot of it needs to be in person. Like on the NLP practitioner course, there was a whole section called sensory acuity, and the sensory acuity is about basically reading someone's non-verbal language. So doing that on a video call like this, we are looking at each other's eyes, but we don't, like, the people watching this won't be able to see that I'm actually looking at your eyes because the camera's at a different position. So when we would do and again, this is the part that was quite awkward, and this is it made me a lot more resilient. I was 23 at the time, and I had to sit in the middle of a cohort of 12 people and coach like a 45-year-old business owner in front of the whole cohort and the trainer. And everyone would pause and then go, I noticed when Charles asks a question, his right eyebrow raises. I noticed that his face started to blush when a question was like that. I'm like, what? I noticed that he started to shallow breathe when he was challenged on this. I'm like, how the fuck? So we had to study everyone's micro muscle movements, their breath patterns and all the rest of it. But then when you think about that, mate, you go into a client meeting and you're asking a client about certain things. You can tell by the way that they're reacting. Do I push into that? Do I just take a step back? Do you know what I mean? So it's little things like that, the art of communication. Because I think there was a thing that came out, 38% of your communication, your influence of communication is actually what you say, how you say it. 7% is what you specifically say, and 55% is non-verbal language. So I could be sat here saying all of this, stiff as a board, talking like a robot. I could have loads of passion, etc., but my face might not necessarily move. I might not influence anyone half as much. A lot of what I say sometimes, and I say this when I do training, there'll be some stuff that I'll say that it will go over people's heads, but I don't really understand that. But I've influenced them, and people go, yeah, that sounds like a fucking great idea. I might convince someone to fucking run over their nan, but the way I say it and my body language, people just fall in line with it. That's a really terrible example, but you know what I'm trying to say.
You know what I'd say to people? What I take from that anyway, it sounds like you absolutely got your money's worth. It sounds like it's going to be expensive, but it definitely sounds like a worthwhile investment at the same time. I'm going to look into it because, like I said, I've heard a few people have done it, a few people that we've probably mutually connected with. But yeah, it sounds like it's really good for recruiters for sure.
Yeah, 100%. Especially when you get into management, and because a lot of it is coaching orientated, they give you a real good coaching framework on how to coach people and stuff like that. But as a recruiter, mate, obviously a lot of what we do is just asking good open questions. When you understand how to ask good open questions in a smart way where it speaks to someone's subconscious to get them to be emotionally invested to what you say, and then use specific language to then get their logical brain to also fall in line, that genuinely, if you think about it, I started my NLP journey in 2017, and from 2017 to 2019, I won Best Business Developer of the Year 2-3 years in a row, and the person that I hired became Best Business Developer of the Year, and I sold the most amount of retainers, the highest fees to this day, every single year since doing that. And that's not like some form of mistake or coincidence. I literally went to a language patterns course with Ricky, and when he said, has anyone got any like upcoming life events? Because by the end of the language pattern course, it was like, you have 25, 30 language patterns. You can either make a sales pitch or whatever. And I just raised my hand. It was a room of 50 people. And I was like, I have a sales pitch tomorrow morning with a sales director who's looking for a sales rep in London. They were like, great. So I literally sat with another coach and another business owner, and we wrote this like long sales pitch using all these language patterns. I rehearsed it. They specifically made a group chat just because everyone was so invested in how my fucking pitch was going to go. I went the next day. We secured 27.5% on a 45 to 50k salary. It's a company called Rockamed. Carl Ingle was the hiring manager, and I placed Tanu. And literally, when was it? 6 or 7 years ago today as well. I got the thing on my Google because we're recording 6th of June now. Done that pitch with my sales director. We shook hands, and his boss, the VP, a guy called Olivia Rapper, signed the terms the following week. I messaged in the group chat, I used my sales pitch with the language patterns, got 27.5%, quarter of the fee up front. Let's fucking go. And they became a fucking great client. So, mate, when you say got the money back, yeah, definitely got the money back.
Just a moment of silence. Take that in, people. Invest in yourself. Invest in yourself is all I'll say. So, obviously, look, you've invested in yourself through continual learning, through putting your money in your own pocket to develop yourself. And that's ultimately led you into coaching, which I guess is sort of moving into like the final chapter of where we're at in your story so far. How did you get into coaching?
So that was it really. So when I met the NLP guy, Ricky, I texted him because I got his number at the end of it, and I said, I've got this idea. I want to speak to you about it. So I bought him a coffee in King's Cross and said, look, and I had like a little little diary, and I made these sketches of literally this back in 2016. And I said, I've got this idea of a coaching business called Iron Mind Coaching. And that's when he started to challenge my beliefs and like my motivations for doing this. And I said, I just have this feeling that I've always wanted to run a business of my own. And for me, the reason why I got into recruitment is of my love of helping people. And because of my story, where I've come from and where I've essentially hit rock bottom, where I didn't really see a point in living anymore. I felt like my purpose was to help people, whether they're at rock bottom or they're a CEO with like a lot of money that wants to get better. I just want to fucking help people. So he helped me. And then, I got a few clients on when I was like 23, but they were like people from the Thai boxing gym, like people in my community. Like I was getting paid like £20 an hour to do a coaching session, and I was like doing 2 or 3 coaching sessions after work. So I'd finish work at like 6, get home, eat dinner, drive to like somewhere in Hertfordshire, go and coach someone for an hour, come back, drive to a pub, go and coach someone. And I was like, this just isn't really sustainable. Like I can't really, do this for very much longer. So then I became a manager, and loved coaching people in there. But then, as I said to you before, that when COVID happened and the market started to shift a little bit, that's when I said to my boss, like, look, my passion is coaching, and I've done the BD thing. I've got the T-shirt, I've got the awards, I've got the trophies and the fucking medals at home. I've been there, I've done that. I just want to do coaching. So he said, go and get an L&D job, couple of years, do that, learn how to train, get more coaching experience. And then once you do that, mate, then you can set your own business up and you'll do really, really well. And that's what I did, man. I got an L&D gig for like just under 2 years. No L&D experience whatsoever. Built that department, trained academies in Germany, in America, dozens in the UK, and coached people. Yeah, the market was really, really buoyant at that time, but got people from 5k a month to 105k a months. Like coached all the top billers there. Guy called Nicholas that was in Germany. Helped him build his desk from scratch. Never done cybersecurity before. I think he'd done like 400k the year that I left. And he's been on my podcast as well. He's a really good guy. So and that's as soon as I got made redundant, that's when I set up Charles Kyriakou Coaching. Obviously, I've rebranded to Infinite Learning now. But yeah, man, that's just like I said many times. It's like that's what I feel is like my purpose is to help people. And with all the personal development stuff that I've learned over the years, and so many of my friends like fucking hell, you're obsessed with like personal development. How do I monetize that? Like, how do I, with all the fucking books I've read, the podcasts I've listened to, the people I've met over the years, I've got so much shit in this head. Like, I want to be able to give that to people. And when I found out how much trainers can actually earn and how much coaches can earn, I was like, that marries up with my other intrinsic motivator of wanting to earn a decent fucking living and not have to worry about buying a steak at bloody Harvester. So, so long story short, that's where I am today. Yeah,
that's where you are today. Nice. And obviously, like you said there, you've always had that internal monologue that, you know, you want to set up your own business one day, take higher upside for yourself. How have you found that in your journey so far?
Hard, man. Like really, really hard. I have to challenge my limiting beliefs on a regular basis, like sometimes even a daily basis. I always get that voice, that like teenage version of me in the back of my head, like, you're not worthy, like, why would people want to work with you? But then I get the other side that knows the proven track record of sales, management, L&D, coaching. It's like, shut the fuck up, bitch. Like, look at all of this. Look at all of that you've done. Look at all the people that you've helped. And sometimes, and I know this sounds cringy, but sometimes when I have that doubt, I go on my LinkedIn page and I look at my recommendations from when I got into L&D, when I set my business up, and look at some of the words that people have said about me. And I go, fuck, man, like, why do I feel like that? And then since doing the podcast, everyone that I speak to, like big shot CEOs, like people that have scaled a business to 100 heads or sold their business for 100 mil. And I'm like, does that imposter syndrome thing ever go? And they all laugh at me and go, nah. Literally, you're if you manage to earn your first million in your lifetime, you're going to be disappointed that it's not 2 million. You're going to be disappointed that it's not 10 million. And as much as gratitude can help in the present moment, if you're that person that always wants more and all the rest of it, you're going to have that drive for more, and you're going to have that voice in the back of your head that says that you're not enough, that you're not worthy, etc. But I've just learned to embrace it, man. I've just learned to go, that's just a part of my brain, but it's not real. It's just a thought, and thoughts aren't real. What's real is your behavior, is your actions. I could sit here and think I'm a piece of shit, but unless I act like a piece of shit and treat you like shit, I'm not. That's just a bullshit limiting belief. So I've learned over the years to harness that and go, cool, how can I get better, etc. And then shift my state so that if I'm going on a coaching call with someone, for example, and I'm sat there going, oh my God, I can just change my belief, change my physiology, change my breath and go, right, thank you, goodbye. And just get that little voice and go, I appreciate you, thank you, I love you, bye, and just get rid of it. And that's one thing, and I said this to a trainee consultant recently. Notice when I said that, I was like, thank you, I appreciate you, goodbye, I love you. That's old me. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for that shit that I've been through. I don't hate that aspect of me because I needed that to be who I am today. And I had this trainee recently that said he's murdered the old version of himself. And I was like, yeah, but he's still a part of you, man. And I know this sounds really like woo-woo to a lot of people, but like the analogy I gave is like, you've tried to kill your old self, but he's rotting inside of you right now. And it's manifesting in all your self-doubt. You need to embrace the old version of you, give the old version of you a hug and say thank you, but you're not needed now. You're not needed now. So you park that, but just embrace it and be grateful for it. I know it sounds a bit weird, a bit woo-woo, but that works for me at least.
What a place to wrap up. I think that's where we end it, Charles. It's been a pleasure having you on. And for the people that are listening, where can they find you?
Oh, mate, LinkedIn is where I live, like most recruiters. So Charles Kyriakou on LinkedIn. You can follow my podcast, the 1% Better Recruitment Podcast. That's on Apple, Spotify, YouTube. I'm also on TikTok, where all the kids are at. I don't really post like actual TikTok style videos. I basically just put all the clips from the podcast there. So if you don't see a lot of clips on LinkedIn, TikTok is where you'll see a lot of the clips. I post them on YouTube as well, but a lot of the recruiters that are on TikTok like the clips from the podcast. But yeah, if you're a recruiter or a founder that's into personal development, like some of the stuff that I said, I'm always open to having conversations with people. The only people I like to work with are open-minded people that are action-orientated, that are goal-orientated, not people that are going to go, yeah, let's sit down and do some coaching and not fucking action anything. Like, if you actually are serious about getting better at what you do, then I'm your guy.
100%. Couldn't agree more, mate. Well, look, thanks for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. And yeah, we'll have to do it again soon.
Oh, 100%. Listen, Fraser, thank you, man. Like, I really appreciate you having me on as one of your first guests. I think this podcast is going to be great. I think you're great. And yeah, hopefully people take some value from this. And yeah, man. And hopefully we'll get to do this in person one day.
Absolutely. You're a legend. Nice one, mate.
Nice one. Cheers, mate.
Cheers. Bye-bye.